I do academic medical illustration. So I work at a medical
Okay.
school. Most of my illustrations are used in publications. Like every visual creative industry, AI is a hot
Oh,
topic in our
okay.
industry. I don't think AI is going to be replacing medical illustration anytime soon.
So joining me today is Jill Gregory, and she is a medical illustrator at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. So Jill, welcome. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Of course. So let's go ahead and get started. Jill, can you please explain to me in the most simple way possible what a medical illustrator does?
Sure. A medical illustrator visually communicates science and medicine. So we create all the images you see in health textbooks, in your doctor's offices, in any kind of medical publication, in
Okay.
any kind of anytime that you need to communicate a scientific concept with an image, medical illustrator can do it.
Okay, amazing. And now, what made you want to get into this career path? How did you get your start in it?
So I always was interested in both biology and art. I didn't really want to be a
Okay.
doctor. When I was in high school, I heard about this field and I was like, that's it. That's what I want to do.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
a lot of people don't find out about medical illustration until they're already in college or after college. But I was lucky that I found out about it young so that
Yeah.
I could go right into studying biology and art in my undergraduate degree.
Okay. And would you say that that's kind of a normal career path that a medical illustrator would take?
So, like I said, most people usually find out about the field a little bit later because it's not that
Yeah.
well known.
Okay.
So most people that become medical illustrators, if they know about it ahead of time, like me, might do a biology and art combination degree, or
Okay.
they'll go to art school or get a science degree, and then most people will go to a graduate program, a 2-year master's degree program in medical illustration. And to
Okay.
do that, you have to have prereqs in both science and art. So if you
Okay.
haven't if you have like an art degree, you may go back and do some post-bac science classes, or if you have a science degree, you might go back and take some art classes to get your
Okay.
portfolio good to go. Yeah.
Interesting. And
Mhm.
so now, what parts of your job are the most exciting or the most interesting to you?
So I work at a hospital, like you said, our medical school, Mount Sinai in New York City, and there's a lot of really interesting research being done, both on a like molecular and cellular level, and then
Mm.
also new surgical techniques. And so, getting to talk to the researchers and the surgeons and doctors about medicine that's just being discovered or figured out, and being the
Um,
first person to draw it is really exciting. And I that's the part that I like the most is just
yeah.
learning from the doctors, their research in science. It's really interesting.
Okay. And now, kind of on the flip side, what parts of your job are harder, emotionally challenging, or maybe just not so fun?
I mean, meetings and emails are not, it's like any job, not exactly
Yeah.
exciting. Um, Keeping track of copyright of the art can be tedious as well, although it's
Yeah.
important. So kind of the paperwork end of things isn't so exciting.
Okay. And so now, what do you think that people might underestimate or overestimate about this job? Another way that I kind of like to ask this question is really just what do you think that people might assume about a medical illustrator?
So I think that people, when they first, especially doctors and scientists, when they first meet me, will start to explain a project, and they'll start explaining it at like a very basic level. And I'll say, no, like you
Mm,
can actually talk to me like maybe not like I'm a doctor, but like I'm a medical student. So
okay.
like they don't always understand that like I know a really a good
Mm,
amount of science. So they may, so
yeah.
that's one thing that's and then other people think sometimes that like I will be working on a project and I'll like sketch or something, and the person will be like,
Okay.
"Oh, you drew that?" I'm like, "Yes, I drew that. That is my job." People don't understand. It's not like a button you just push in the computer and the illustration comes out. Like you're actually, it's like I think people don't always believe that an actual human can make an illustration
Mhm.
or make a drawing. They think that somehow you have to program a computer to do it.
Yeah.
So the fact that it is actually me making the drawings, people are sometimes surprised about. So it's
Yeah.
funny, when that
Yeah.
happens. Yeah.
That's what I was shocked about too whenever I first reached out to you and we talked about medical illustration. I was like, "Wait, people actually draw, like,
Right.
what's on the books?" I was
Yeah,
like, "Whoa."
exactly. Exactly. It's one
Yeah.
of those things that you don't think about. as a job,
Yeah.
and then but then once you do, you're like, oh right, somebody has to actually do this.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So now within medical illustration, are there specific niches or specialties that people can choose to go into? And if so, what are they?
Yeah, actually, it's a pretty small field, only a few thousand of
Okay.
us. But
Wow.
within that field, there are quite a few niches. So,
Okay.
like for example, what I do academic medical illustration. So I work at a medical
Okay.
school. Most of my illustrations are used in publications. There are people that specialize in medical legal illustration. So that's like, say you were in an accident, you broke your leg, and you're in a lawsuit to get
Oh, wow.
damages.
Okay.
The lawyers hire medical illustrators to create illustrations to show the jury to help them understand like how the accident happened or what the
Oh,
kind of injuries are to the person. So that's medical legal
okay.
medical illustration. There's people that specialize in animation or 3D modeling or making
Mm,
VR experiences, like making
wow.
things for like virtual surgeries to practice for doctors to practice before they go into the
Wow.
OR. People that specialize in patient education materials. Yeah, I mean, you would think like, how can there be so many different parts of such a small field? But there actually are like
Yeah.
quite a few. And then there are also people that will spin off and do veterinary illustration
Okay.
or like botanical, natural science illustration. Those are all sort of subsets of the field.
Okay.
So,
Amazing. And now, who would you say are some of the biggest employers of this industry? I also kind of like to ask who looks for a medical illustrator.
so some of the biggest employers are medical institutions, like the Mayo Clinic has quite a big
Yeah.
team. Johns Hopkins has a big team.
Okay.
Mount Sinai, we have a couple illustrators. There are illustrators also at different universities throughout North America. The field
Okay.
is focused mostly in Canada and the US, although there are people working in Europe and other parts of the world. That's institution based. Then there are small firms or medical legal firms that hire medical illustrators. They do like
Okay.
all different kinds of aspects for trial preparation. There are small firms that focus on pharmaceutical advertising. So they use medical illustrators. Those are usually small teams. And then quite a few medical illustrators are self-employed. So a good portion of our industry works for themselves and does any of the kind of work I've just been describing to you, but on a contractual basis, not being
Okay.
hired full time.
Okay. And now, before we kind of got on this call, I had to do a little bit of research
Okay.
on the average income for a
Mhm.
medical illustrator. Of course, that may vary depending on where you work, but according to Google, the average is about $87,000. From your experience, is that accurate? What do you think?
That sounds about right. I think
Okay.
most people coming out of school should expect to make at least 65,000, and then as you get more experience and go up
Yeah.
the career ladder, obviously you'll make more. Yeah.
Okay. Great. And so now, what are some current trends or challenges within this industry, and how do you see it changing in about 5 to 10 years?
So, like every visual creative industry, AI is a hot
Yeah.
topic in our
Okay.
industry. I don't think AI is going to be replacing medical illustration anytime soon because if you put in a prompt for an chat gpt or any of these ai machines for
Yeah.
medical illustration to come out, they're always ridiculously inaccurate. So for the short term there's not a threat to our field, but I think looking far term as the ai machines get our programs get smarter and more sophisticated, it's
Hmm.
how do we integrate ai into what we do as opposed to like running away from it,
Yeah.
similar to like when Photoshop and other computer programs first became popular. People were worried that, you know, medical illustration used to be watercolor and pencil and ink. And were the computers going to take over our jobs? Like,
Yeah.
no, we all use Photoshop now to create the medical illustration. So
Yeah.
I feel like I mean, I'm not like super excited about it, but I'm also trying to be like, okay, this is coming. Like, how do we
Yeah.
embrace it? How do we incorporate it into our workflows and not, just stick your head in the sand because you need to stay current with all this technology.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so now with all of that, how do you stay updated with the latest developments of your field?
So I'm a very active member in the Association of Medical Illustrators, AMI.org. I was president last year, so I'm very involved.
Okay.
And that's
Okay.
the way that I stay the most up to date. In fact, we just had a webinar today on AI and medical illustration that I
Okay.
attended. So very timely question.
Yeah.
There's also like a message board where people will ask questions, or I go to the annual conference. I also just read up on the latest in, like, when Photoshop comes out with a new software, new version, I'll, like, read up on the different tools and stuff on
Yeah.
YouTube, and the way anybody learns anything.
And so now kind of going into your daily work and your
Mhm.
tasks, what's your schedule like? What tasks do you spend the majority of your day doing? What does a day in Jill's life look
Okay.
like?
So I have a very 9 to 5 job.
Okay.
Pre-pandemic, I was going to the office every day. Now I go in once to twice a week and work from home the rest
Wow.
of the time.
Okay.
So, usually it's log into my computer, check my email, see if anything came up for overnight. I usually will work on about 3 projects per day. And, I've got maybe 15 open projects at any given time, but they're all in
Okay.
different stages of completion. So some might be like I'm sketching, or I'm waiting for the client to get back to me, or I have to do the finals or do the edits. So the nice thing about working for a large medical center like Mount Sinai is, today I worked on illustrating a shoulder repair surgery.
Mm.
And then tomorrow I might work on like cellular biology, immunology illustrations.
Okay.
I'm kind of like all
Okay.
over the place, which I
Yeah.
which I enjoy. So, and then usually I have 1 to 2 client meetings over Zoom, maybe a staff meeting. So it's a typical,
Okay.
office job. I'm sitting in front of a
Yeah.
computer all day. I take a lunch break, the normal thing. But yeah, it's pretty much, 9 to 5 standard office hours.
Okay. And do you see that you can kind of keep all of your work within the 9 to 5 hours, or do you see that you take some home?
I am pretty good about sticking to nine to
Okay.
five. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. And so now, are there any busy seasons in this job? And if so, what are they?
So for someone in my position, an academic medical illustrator, it does tend to follow the academic calendar. So a lot of the
Okay.
illustrations we're making are for conferences or people who are publishing, and people tend to go on vacation in the summer or at Christmas time. So usually the busy times are the fall and the spring. We're just
Okay.
sort of coming off of May was very busy in June, and I'm hoping that in the next week or so things are going to start to slow down. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you get like a summer break? What does that look like?
I mean, it slows down in the summer, and I often take a
Okay.
vacation in the summer, but there's no
Okay.
like quote unquote break. No.
Break. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. And so now diving into some specific skills and knowledge for this role. We kind of touched on this earlier, but are certain degrees or certifications truly required to become a medical illustrator?
Nothing is truly required. It isn't like
Okay.
becoming a doctor or a lawyer where you have to get like
Okay.
some pass a test or something.
Yeah.
Most people will either there are undergraduate degrees in medical illustration, or they'll get a master's degree in medical illustration.
Okay.
So those are the 2 main ways to go. There are currently 5 accredited master's degree programs in North America, and there's a
Oh,
handful, maybe 10 or so undergraduate degree options.
okay.
Um, and there is a process to become a certified medical illustrator that is also optional, but it is a way to say to potential clients or people that might be hiring you for a job like I am, I've taken this test and passed it, and I'm keeping current, because in order to keep your certification, you
Okay.
have to take continuing education credits and get
Yeah.
recertified every 5 years. So it just kind of shows that like you're staying, current with the field.
Okay. And so now, what are some natural strengths or talents that you think would make someone a good medical illustrator?
I think being able to draw is good. Um,
Yeah.
but I have to say, people always like, "Oh, I can't draw," and I think drawing's a skill like anything else. I mean, you can have some inborn talent, but if you practice enough, you'll get
Yeah.
better, and you'll produce start making strong work. Like the work that I was doing right out of school, like it was okay, but certainly I'm 25 years in, I'm much more skilled. So
Yeah.
being either just that passion to draw, and then also the willingness to put in the work to practice. And I
Okay.
also think being really into realism and detail and accuracy is important.
Okay.
So if you're drawn to abstract expressionism or impressionism, this isn't the field for you. Like accuracy is actually more important than aesthetics.
Okay.
So I'd rather see a medical illustration that has no anatomical mistakes. That's the most important thing. So yeah, attention to detail is very important.
Okay. And now just out of curiosity, whenever someone comes to you and says that you need to create an illustration for a shoulder repair, what do
Mhm.
you look at in order to create your illustration?
Great question. So what will usually happen is I'll have an initial meeting with the client, and
Okay.
they'll talk me through the procedure. They might I ask them to share with me the manuscript they're working on that has the written down directions on how like the
Okay.
procedure is done. Sometimes they have footage from the OR, so they'll show me the actual surgical footage. And part of
Okay.
medical illustration graduate training is going to the OR and observing cases. So becoming
Wow.
comfortable with like looking at a surgical field.
Yeah.
Um, and I'll look at illustrations online of similar techniques, or like for this shoulder repair, I looked at a few different similar illustrations, although they weren't showing the exact same technique. So just to kind of get an idea of how they arrange the figure. I used a 3D model of a shoulder bone, the
Okay.
scapula, and I kind of arranged it in the exact position I wanted and use that as a reference.
Interesting.
Also used textbooks, and I mean, I was lucky in this case that the client actually did a bunch of sketches himself that have been really, really helpful. So I've
Okay.
been using his
Okay.
sketches as reference. So
Yeah.
kind of a little bit of everything.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so now what are some tools, technologies, softwares, programs that you see that you use a lot as part of your job?
I've already mentioned Photoshop several times.
Yeah.
So I use Photoshop and Illustrator quite a bit. I know other people in the field will use software like Procreate, other kinds of like iPad-based software. I
Okay.
work on a desktop, so I use the Adobe suite. That's the main technology. I also use a 3D modeling tool called Complete Anatomy. That's a 3D model that I use for reference. For people that are
Okay.
actually creating their own 3D models, they might use Cinema 4D or Maya or ZBrush. Those
Okay.
are the popular. I'm kind of old fashioned. I just do 2D illustration, but for people that are doing
Okay.
3D and modeling, those are what they would use.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so now we want to give our listeners a little bit of advice. So, what do you recommend that candidates that are interested in becoming medical illustrators do to set themselves apart from others?
So if you're applying to graduate school or undergraduate school, strong figure drawing skills are really important. Most
Okay.
of the programs don't want you to submit medical content as your in your portfolio. They want to see really good figure drawing. So taking a
Okay.
bunch of, in fact, when I was first applying to graduate school, I did an informational interview, and the faculty member said, "Go take some figure drawing classes." So I did. So I
Okay.
did. I
Wow.
took some figure drawing classes and got my portfolio stronger, and that's what helped me apply and get into graduate school.
Okay.
And then if you are already have your degree, or like you're not going to school, but you want to kind of transition into the field, having a really good website is super important. Like I can't imagine there's a medical illustrator working out there. Even like someone like me who has a full-time job, I don't need to like find clients. They come through my
Hmm.
work. I still have a website just because people will say like, "What do you do for your job?" And then when I say that, they're like, "What is that?" And so then I can just show them the website and they can see.
Yeah.
Um,
And so, sorry, what do you
and
recommend that the website includes?
yeah,
Yeah.
a portfolio, like I say, a tight like 15 strong pieces is
Okay.
better than putting everything from your elementary school drawing class up to today. Like I
Yeah.
think people sometimes think they have to show like quantity of work, and I think quality is way more important. And also thinking like if you want to get into academic medical illustration or patient education, make sure your portfolio has lots of examples of that. You may
Okay.
even have to like, give yourself assignments and just create work that would goes towards the field that you want to get into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I probably should have asked this a little bit earlier, but
Hmm.
how long does it take you to complete a project, roughly?
Yeah. So since I was just working on that shoulder, I can tell you I'm still sketching, but I probably spent about 3 or 4 hours today working on the sketches. This one
Okay.
is really intense. Like
Okay.
I needed to take a break after a while because just thinking about it
Yeah.
was hard.
Oh,
And then I'll send those to my client. They'll send back feedback. I might make some changes to the sketches. I usually 1 to 2 rounds of revisions to the sketches, and then I'll do the final version. And the final version is usually quicker than the sketching because I know what I'm doing now. Now I'm just rendering up.
yeah.
So something like that, you know, because I'm juggling many projects, this one will probably take me from start to finish about 3 to 4 weeks, but within
Okay.
that, maybe like 10 hours of work.
Okay. Cool.
I have gotten having been so far in my career, I am faster than I was at the
Yeah.
beginning. I've got a lot of stuff in
Yeah.
my portfolio I can pull from, so that
Yeah.
makes it faster too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. And now, what are some books or resources that you recommend our listeners look into if they're interested in this field?
So I would say AMI.org, the Association of Medical Illustrators, is a
Okay.
great resource. There aren't really books about medical illustration, really.
Okay. That's okay.
There's one called MedSpeak Illustrated, I believe. I can get you the link to it.
Okay.
It's written
Perfect.
by an MD. It's more like for doctors who want to learn more about medical illustration, but you can use it for anyone can read it
Okay.
and understand. Um, yeah, I would say look at the AMI, and in the AMI site, there's linked out all the different programs, the graduate programs and undergraduate as well. So you can go look at the individual programs and see like what the prerequisites
Okay.
are, that kind of stuff. Also a program at the University of British Columbia that's a 1 year online, I think it's a certificate. It's for people that are interested in getting into medical illustration but don't have time to go get a full degree.
Okay.
It's like it's an online curriculum, and I know people that are maybe already have a PhD or something like that will do that. So that's
Okay.
another option as well.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And so now, finally, if you could
Mhm.
talk to your younger self when you were just beginning in your career, what would you tell
Uh, don't answer every email right away.
them?
You don't
Great
have to
advice.
respond. Yeah, I found, especially when it's a difficult question, or someone's asking you something like you're not really sure you want to say yes to, like just
Yeah.
take a beat, sit down, like give it a day. It's fine if you take a day
Yeah.
to respond. I think that's important. Um, and like every project is important, but also, over the course of your career, you're going to do hundreds, thousands of illustrations. So like if there's one that isn't exactly what you like hoped and dreamed it would be, that's okay, because there's going to be another
Yeah.
project coming down the pike.
Yeah.
So yeah, just relax. I think I,
Yeah,
you
that is
know,
really good advice. Okay, well, that is all that we have for today. So, Jill, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for
thank you.
sharing your experience as a medical illustrator. Your insight was greatly appreciated. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for inviting me.
You just got one episode closer to learning about the world of jobs out there. To explore the rest of our career categories and find your best fit, go to jobdictionary.com to sign up for the beta users waitlist. Then subscribe here to find the next episodes coming out this week. And as always, drop us a comment, review, or message to let us know how we can better attune our episodes to your specific needs. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, X, Threads, Pinterest, and wherever else you're on socials to go get our short, snappy preview reels that expose you to new job options every day. Because here at Job Dictionary, we believe your big aha moment can be just one scroll away. Go check it out and get out there. Cheers!